Hello, everybody. My name is Joris from Cutting Edge Studio, and I'm joined today by Richard from K-Book Promotions. And yeah, we have some major updates for you. KDP has made one of the biggest updates in years, and a lot of authors are freaked out. So Richard and I would like to basically update you. What are these changes? Should you be afraid or not? And what you should do. Richard, thank you very much for joining me today. And yeah, let's dive right into this. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of big changes up. So yeah, I'll just hand it over to you. We have prepared a nice little slide deck. So let's get this ball rolling, man. How you doing?
Thanks, Joris. That's very kind of you. So I'm going to go straight to the point of the area I'm going to cover today, which is the main category changes in Amazon. As you can see from the slide deck, this is a presentation which we give to our Cutting Edge Studio author community. This is a community online which we encourage authors to join because it's one way of keeping up to date. And this slide deck and what you see will be available there anytime for you to see. So what are the big changes happening in 2003? Well, there's a lot of them, but like I say, I'm going to focus on one small one, which is perhaps important for a lot of authors, which is the changes you've seen to the reviewer categories. But the main subject today will be the changes you see, which is very big. I think the category changes they're enforcing on authors within KDP. So let's go through that. Let's go on to the next slide. So the reviewer categories. A lot of people probably didn't notice this, but at the end of December into January 2023, they changed also the reviewer categories. As you can see in the slide deck, that basically means that everything you used to be able to see, like the top 1,000 reviewers, the Hall of Fame, all these people had badges, and they used to be quite good in promoting your book because if you saw those reviewers on your book, it was great. But Amazon has decided that rather than let the public with helpful votes decide who they are, only they're going to decide who are the best reviewers, and that's the Vine reviewers. They're the only ones really left, and those are selected by Amazon themselves. So for those of you who've been tracking Amazon, all these changes for the last few years, it comes as no surprise. If you look at the history, you're probably aware, if you look at this last bullet point, that first of all, you were able to contact the reviewers through the email and their profile. You could add comments to the reviews, etc. Well, all that's gone. So be aware that this is a major change if you're following the reviewer categories. And the only ones you will get now is just the public reviewers and the Vine reviewers. And that's another subject we can cover later on as to how you can attract those type of reviewers. Okay, let's start with the big change, which I just introduced, the book category changes. So I'm going to talk about what is the good, the bad, the ugly, so you get a good idea of what impact this has for you as an author and maybe as a publisher. Perhaps it's a good idea if I just go into KDP and show you some of the changes so you can visually see this. So first of all, hopefully you can see this pop-up. Can you see this pop-up?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, okay. So this is how it used to look. You used to go to KDP, you could drill down to these areas. And as you probably know, at least the better informed authors, this was based on the BISAC codes, which is a generic category used by publishers. And the real problem was in the sense that one, it wasn't a one-to-one match. And the real big problem was it didn't match the categories you actually see in Amazon. So the actually visual categories as you see them on Amazon don't match. So the problem here was that you were limited to a very small range of categories when in actual fact, there are thousands of categories you can select, and I'll highlight that in a moment. So let's look into that. Let's see if I can open the KDP area. So if I go into KDP, this is now what it could look like. Let me just move that up a bit for you. So if you were to log into KDP today, you see that that selection by BISAC codes is totally changed. So let's just go through this a little bit. So here I've selected a certain book. The first thing it will ask me to do is to select what is my primary audience. So obviously it's asking a simple question like, is this suitable for children? Now, most of us will decide yes, unless obviously, sorry, let me rephrase that. You'll select no, because you basically saying there's no inappropriate images or content for children. So it's open for the general public. clearly, if you were to select yes, what would happen is that the categories you select will not include the children category, etc. So already there's one filter there for you. This option of the reading age is optional, so I'll skip that for now. But as you can see now, I'm going to say basically there's no limitation. Now, the next thing a lot of people don't notice is the marketplace. So here, most of us will select Amazon.com, but let's just see what impact this has. If I select, for example, the UK, you will see that has totally different categories. You can basically say, if I go, just to give you one example, I can now go into this category selection here by pressing this button here. And if I select a certain category, I'm going to say romance for now, because that's one of the most popular genres. So if I drill down, again, you can see it's totally different than the BISAC selection where you could drill down. It's basically one option after another. Here, I'm going to select romance. Let's see if I can find it. Here you are. And here you can see that under the UK, because I select the UK, there's only 2 subcategories here. Whereas you can see that when I move now to the Amazon.com, it will be different. So let's just cancel that just to really illustrate that point. I'll select the Amazon.com and I'll go back to the category selection. And if I select now romance, you can see now that I have far more subcategories to choose from. So that's one important point that most people don't actually cover in their coverage of the new categories. It'll depend on which marketplace you're selecting. So I'm going to go back here and just show you that, yeah, that you can now drill down to the selection of your categories till you find the one you want.
Yeah, okay, maybe so if you can interrupt real quickly, I think I have a nice addition for that as well. So apparently it is now the case that, because a question that we can expect now is, okay, so now if I choose Amazon.com as my primary marketplace, what about having my books in categories in the UK or in different countries? So basically what happens, you pick your primarily marketplace, you pick the categories within that marketplace, and then Amazon automatically will put your book in the categories they think are similar in the UK and Germany and whatever countries out there. So you don't have, you can't pick and choose those. Amazon will do that for you. You can only pick the categories for your primarily marketplace.
Yeah, that's a good point, Joris. So in a sense, if you fill in the Amazon.com one, that's all you need to do. Amazon will do the rest for the UK, for Germany, etc., finding the best match for you. So thank you, Joris. That's a good point. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So I've explained to you, hopefully very clearly, how the selection of categories has changed. Now, let's discuss the impact this has for us as authors. I say us because we're all authors in this discussion too. So I'm going to go for the good. Now, the good points I think are very important. First of all, the same category selection as before. Now, there was a lot of authors contacting us saying, whoa, what impact does this have for us? You know, do I have less categories before? Now, originally during this week, the first week they launched this, the answer was yes, but luckily they fixed this. First of all, they said you could only have 2 categories. Now they're saying 3, which is, it looks like they're going to stick to. So just to be clear, you've got 3 ebook categories and 1 book category as well, if you publish in paperback or hardback. But you can see here that now you have the same range of categories, and I'll highlight, perhaps I can show that to you here. If I open up a spreadsheet, this just to show you how thorough we are on the community. We examine every single category for you. Now there's over 5,000 categories in Amazon, so bear with us. We haven't done every single one at the moment. But if you drill down, you can see here, you know, here, if you can see this, I know this is quite small, but I'm looking at the 4,000 categories. Now, if I drill down to, you know, the romance section here, we've checked all these, and the good news is that all these categories are the same as they were before. In fact, I even detected one new one under romance, for example. Maybe they added this before the change, but when I checked this about a month ago, they didn't have this Viking subcategory under romance. So the good news is that the range of categories you have are totally not changed at all. So that's great to see. Another thing I'm going to highlight now, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide, but now I'm here, let's show this, is that one of the things which is a bit peculiar about Amazon's category is that if you look at something like romance, let me highlight this for you, the yellow ones. So if I go through all these romance ones, You can, sorry about that. That's my cursor messing that up. You'll see that, let me find romance again, where were we? We were in, here we are. There, if we look at romance, there's about 46 of these categories. Yeah, so in actual fact, that's exactly the same as before. You see the county of 46. But in actual fact, the ridiculous thing I find about category selection is that in other categories like science and maths, there's over 200 subcategories. So I'll talk about this in a little bit, but again, that's one of the things you have to be aware of, that romance, thrillers, mystery, which are the most popular of all, there still could be more flexibility in the range of categories they have, especially if you look at things like science and maths. So that's an interesting point. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So great news, there's no real change. What is a slight change, and I think people like Dave Chesson and Kindlepreneurs covered this, is that it'll actually do some checks for you. So if you specify a certain category that they think is totally inappropriate, like French cookery and the romance I mentioned, they might flag that as and send a draft category for your book. So that means if you go to KDP, it'll put you under draft, and you'll get an email from Amazon telling you, please change your category. I'm not really sure how thorough they'll be with that, because the whole thing is Amazon wants to move away from, selecting categories and changing for you, but be aware that could happen. So the good news is that all the categories are the same as before. No need to contact Amazon support anymore for those hidden categories that weren't in KDP before. You can now select them within KDP themselves. So you can do that all by yourself as long as you've got the KDP access. So all can be done in KDP. And the good news as well, if you're using certain tools from Publisher Rocket to KDP Spy, all these tools exist, they will still be very helpful in helping you select niche categories or whatever categories that suit your book. So that's all good news. Okay, now the not so good news, the bad. So be aware you are limited to 3 categories now. Before you could select up to 10 for those who knew how to do that by contact Amazon support, but you're now limited to to 3. There's some good news in that, which I'll cover a little bit later on, but essentially a lot of authors just complain about that because it means their book is less visible in all those categories. It says you cannot contact Amazon support, and most of the time that's true, but what I found out is there's a limit to support there. So if you have a problem, they will at least look at you, at your query. As I've talked about in that spreadsheet, there's still an imbalance in the category selection. So I find it very odd, for example, that under romance, as you saw, there were only 46 categories in there. Whereas if I go to science and maths, there's over 200 categories. I think that's something which is not right. Why some of the most popular genres are limited in the subcategories compared to others. Forgive me if you're a science and maths author, but for me, that sounds like, 202 is very generous. And again, I could go back to spreadsheets to show this, but romance, there's only 3 levels deep you can go. Whereas ironically, other categories, again, all respect to religion and spirituality, you can go 5 deep. So I find it very strange that, you can go so deep with some categories, but not some of the popular ones like romance, sci-fi, and thrillers. Another small point is that it can be, under this new system, quite be difficult to find certain categories. So for example, here, I mentioned literature, women's fiction, romance. That could be a nice fit for you, but you won't find it if you're looking under the romance category, because if you type in romance, it won't drill you down here. You'd have to find it under literature and fiction. So quite a lot of things to take on board. The ugly. The main point I would say under the category, the ugly, is that it's still very strange the way Amazon works. As you know, the old system was very ugly in the sense that you could select certain categories in KDP, and the rest you'd have to do through Amazon support. You've also seen that the categories in each different market are different. It would be nice if they could fix that too. So I think there's still quite a lot of things that Amazon still have to fix. There's also misleading information, the use of keywords to help you in selection category. So for a long time, you might remember that Amazon used to say, use the keywords that will help you in your category selection. Well, to use an English expression, bollocks, that's just not true. It's a case that's really for keyword selection. So if you're looking for example, Joris, myself being here in the Netherlands, If you want to look for a travel guidebook for Holland, you could type in travel guide in Holland, and then hopefully you'll select the right categories. Right books for you rather than the categories. So this also led to the problem of, and it still will do maybe, of category stuffing, where people will put you in the wrong French cooking book will appear under romance. I think that will go away. So the whole new system is great in the sense that all these ugly points that Amazon have will be helped, except for this last category. The category imbalance still remains. So hopefully Amazon will address that. So as I say, we're trying to be very brief to the point here. The recommendations for all this is do try find to drill down into all these subcategories. The more time you spend in that, the more likely you find categories that suit your book. If aiming for the bestseller categories, let's face it, a lot of authors want categories not because they want the best fit, but they also want it to be very visible by putting your book into a bestseller category. So you're trying to find where is the minimum sales I need to try and get into bestseller list. So there are books on this, there are YouTube videos on this, and of course the community we are part of will help you in that. And lastly, expect further changes from Amazon. The reality is that it's already changed twice this week. And the good news is that if you follow your favorite newsletters, YouTube channels, do be a bit careful with YouTube videos. I find most of them are out of date, but the author community, like the one we're part of, the Cutting Edge Studio author community, if you join that, will keep you up to date of those changes. So that's great news. Just before I pass into Joris, so yeah, if you want to know more about how the categories work in Amazon, I'm an author covering this subject. My second book particularly covers this. So if you want to know more about the nuances of categories, that's the book I would recommend to you. If you're really up to date on things like how to use ChatGPT and use AI automation, yeah, there's some new books I'm releasing on that as well. So on that note, before I over to Joris, yeah, this is the site we encourage you to visit, the Cutting Edge Studio. Join the community if you want to become a member and be up to date on all these changes at Amazon. So Joris, I hope that addresses most of the points on that subject for our users today.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to, can you go back like 2 slides for me?
Sure.
There we go. Yeah, this one. I want to briefly touch on something like here as well. The question I get from a lot of the authors in the community and our newsletter, etc., is like, hey, but what about we now at 10 categories, now suddenly need to do 3. Do I need to change these categories, or do I leave them be? And how does that work? So in generally, what I did is I went into the guidelines of KDP, and the reason why I went back to 3, amongst other, is that they found out that only 3 categories were actually really working off those 10. So having all that many categories were not actually doing a lot of things for many authors, at least not due to KDP guidelines. So should you update your categories? Yes, I would highly recommend that, because even in the KDP guidelines, it states that having only 3 categories will do even more for your book than actually having the 10. And if it's in the KDP guidelines, I would definitely follow that. I mean, they really know what they're doing. It's their system. So I would always try to follow the guidelines. So to answer that, yes, go back in, even if you have really old books. And I know if you have like a big catalog, it takes a little bit of work. Go back in, update those categories. But that also means that you actually have to do your research again. And this is something that a lot of authors don't do. Once they upload their book, right before, they perhaps do a search, and then they throw it out there. And then after that, they never touch it again. My recommendation is always to take a look at the keywords and the categories at least every 3 or 4 months, because things are constantly changing. And especially with this change, if you haven't done any research for quite a while, this is the timing to do so. I mean, go back in, do your search. Of course, a great tool for that is KDP Rocket. There's going to be a link to that right below this video. So if you don't have access to KDP Rocket, you can get a discount by getting that to our affiliate link. But yeah, definitely get access to that, do some research, or outsource it. I mean, the link there also takes some information about how you can outsource that. We would happily do this for Sorry, I will happily do this for you. But at least do your research. It's really important, and update your categories. Something else I want to really briefly top on is about the new pricing structure. So we're talking about the categories here, but it's not the only change that Amazon is going to upload. There's going to be a new pricing structure, and that's going to be in effect on June the 20th. And that basically means, especially for your paperback and hardcover or your physical books, price will increase. Really briefly, there's a few changes here. I wrote them down a bit. It basically means that change one is that you have a standard trim size, what they call a standard trim size, which basically means that everything like a 6x9 and below, they see that as a standard trim size. Those prices will increase slightly for the printing cost, but it's slightly. But if you have a bigger printing, like for children's books, you have a bigger trim size, those tend to increase really significantly. Yeah, be careful for that, especially if you write children's books. And there's also going to be a fixed cost for a certain amount of pages. So, and above will increase the price per page. So reducing your page count can actually increase your profit as well. So you're going to have to play around with trim size, page counts, in order to actually still have a profit without having to increase the price of your book constantly. So it's something you can play around with. Now, and we're going to keep this briefly as we can. So we're going to have a lot of more discussions about this, especially when it comes down to the categories or recommendations. You can find the slides from today inside of the community as well. We're going to have new videos and tips and tricks about the new pricing structure. So if you want to find out more, we highly encourage you to join our community, CES Pro. And in a nutshell, it's an author community where authors come together, of course, connect. You can build launch teams, you can help each other out, but it's more than that. It's also like an online school. So I have a lot of courses, tutorials, or hopefully the videos. It's the first place where we always upload new videos and like new recommendations for especially things like this. We have events, group coaching call sessions, we have expert interview sessions, you name it. So it's basically one place where you can come to stay up to date, to connect, and to learn. And if you join today, and again, there's going to be a link to that in the bottom. This community was in beta for about 2 or 3, 4 months. We're now officially launching it, but you now can join as basically a founding member. And also the price is going to be for that. So join today. You can also get a 10% discount. So we have a lot of advantages if you scroll down, get all the information there. And yeah, so that's basically on my part. Richard, do you have anything to add for that?
No, I mean, the only last point maybe is I do have some people asking questions about, some problems they're facing. Maybe the most popular one is what happens if my categories are not showing on Amazon. So have we got time to tackle that one?
Yeah, we still have like 10 minutes, so it's good.
Well, I'll be shorter than that, so no worries. So yeah, this can happen. So let me see if I can bring up my browser again. Let's look at, so for example, I have this issue in my book. So if I select, well, I think I can go straight into this. Yeah. So this is a site I recommend. So if your book is not appearing, the categories, and I can show you that today, I think I meant to show you. So yeah, here you are. I'm just releasing this new book basically on how to use AI to help you get more Amazon reviews using the Amazon terms and conditions. So all approved by Amazon. And you can see here at the moment, because I've just released it, there are no categories showing. Now, this is typical of two situations. Either you have no sales yet, which is the case because I literally just did this a moment ago, or you've made a recent category change. That can sometimes happen where Amazon takes about 24 hours to actually refresh it. So this can be a problem. You're not going to reach any categories. You're not going to reach any bestseller lists. So the way to solve this is that you can go into a product called a website. I call it for short Blink, but so you can see here it's BKLNK. If you cut and paste your ASIN number, which is basically here, your ASIN at the top of your book, you cut and paste that into this site, and it will reveal the categories for you. So here you can see I've already done that. And this sort of assures you that your categories are actually logged into Amazon. They're just not showing yet because of the sales. So the good news here is one example. You can see I have one book category, and you can see I have 3 ebook categories. The rest of this you can sort of ignore because those are different sites. Right? But this would solve the problem for you. So if you see no categories showing, go to this website, and it's one way of just assuring you that they are in the system. It's just waiting, as I say, for either the sales for your book to appear, or for for Amazon to update the website based on a change you've made in KDP. So that's probably the main troubleshooting issue I've faced with some authors today. So I hope that helps as well.
No, that's great. That's great. That's great. All right, awesome. And yeah, so I think we covered it. I think we did really good time-wise. That's really good. We really want to keep these videos as short as we can. Richard, thank you for joining us today, of course, and for everybody who's watching this. If you're an author, again, join the community to stay in the loop for more tips and tricks, etc. All the information is going to be below there, and yeah, especially this next coming week, a lot of things are going to change. We're going to upload new content, new videos about these changes in the community. So see you inside, and yeah, have a great day, I would say. Thanks.